Namaste, namaste, precious, precious souls. Welcome to Book of Life. And today we're going to, or tonight, depending on where you are, we're going to be picking up where we left off from last week on the phenomena of trance, part 2. This will be, effectively, lesson 9. Before we begin, we can do a little invocation. Just go ahead and place the tip of the tongue on the palate. Just be in a nice receptive position. Nice slow inhalation, nice slow exhalation. To the Supreme One of all life, Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, to all those that we invoke to, all of our spiritual teachers, our spiritual elders, our celestial guides, our angel guides, our higher soul. May we be a channel through which thy holy ones approach the world. May we be a center for the radiation of thy power. Teach us to travel light, that we may better gain the heights, break the bonds that bind. Teach us to give ourselves entirely to thy service, to attune ourselves to thy will. Teach us to lay down the small personal life for the greater cosmic life, and to love with the love of God, with thanks and in full faith. Om. Tat Sat Om. All right. The phenomena of trance. 5th degree, lesson 9, part 2. Trance and purification. Effects of trance. Robert's teachings continue now about trance and the spiritual benefits of this technique. The question is asked, is trance dangerous? There can be only one answer. It depends entirely upon the individual involved. For those who are seeking higher spiritual unfoldment and who use good judgment, trance is no more dangerous than sleep. However, those who seek to unfold the phases of psychic trance or other psychic talents, but who simply wish to use it as a way to impress or control others, attempting to learn this technique would not be wise. Also, it is not wise for people who drink, smoke, or who take drugs to attempt to develop this technique. Meditation in itself should be practiced by everyone. However, seeking to open psychic centers for superficial reasons can be dangerous, especially for those who regularly take into their body substances which are harmful to one's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. I do not lecture you about the negative aspects of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs from the moral standpoint of a preacher, but I refer to the far-reaching effects of these behaviors from the esoteric viewpoint of a teacher. The results of taking these substances into your body and are much more damaging to the astral and mental bodies than the physical. And it is important that you know and understand this. How do tobacco, alcohol, and drugs affect the aura and spiritual development? It is a legitimate question to ask. What possible harm can come from having an occasional cocktail? And I reply, insofar as it affects your being a good person, none whatsoever. However, every drop of liquor which enters your body affects the bloodstream and the cells of your body, changing their vibrations and leaving its trace. This causes a complete chemical change in the entire vehicle, lowering its vibration, thus changing the aura. The cells of your body are composed of atoms which magnetically attract similar atoms out of the ethers, while the aura is radiating charges of this low vibration. Negative atoms from the negative type ethers are magnetically drawn toward you. And so sometimes our entities on the lower astral plane whose negative astral bodies and auras harmonize momentarily with your own. The same is true of tobacco. There are those who will ask, how can smoking prevent my being psychic or spiritual? And the answer is that it cannot prevent psychic development, but it most certainly can and does dramatically slow spiritual progression. Some of our greatest psychics today are chain smokers, but they are not necessarily evolving spiritually at the rate that they surely would otherwise. The same is true of those who take drugs of any kind. The facts that the cells of their physical bodies are permeated by the toxins of tobacco, alcohol, or drug use, which cause them to be lowered in vibration. Though they may still be excellent psychics, they can never reach spiritual heights until their physical bodies are cleared of these cells. Never forget this. One can be psychic without being spiritual. Astara emphasizes spiritual self-realization, not psychic gifts. The unfoldment of spiritual powers often leads to the unfoldment of psychic powers, but the unfoldment of psychic powers does not always influence one's spiritual progression. Now, again, this has nothing to do with moral. For many psychics who are smokers, for example, offset the lowered vibrations of their physical bodies by purified mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. In other words, even though they indulge in tobacco, they seek ways of serving humanity and in doing good so that the atoms of the mental body burn out toxins of the astral body to some degree. This offset by the mental body operates only to a certain point, however. There is one point regarding your lower self. Each person consists of three component parts: the lower self, the normal self, and the high self. I do not mean that there are three different personalities. I mean that the three selves make up you, just as meditation unites you with your high self. Just so can regular drinking or any bad habit unite you with your lower self and thus constrict the lifeline between you and your high self, so that you are in some ways constricting the connection between you and the divine source. No one is ever cut off from this connection, of course, but while some activities increase this connection, others lessen it or constrict one's ability to easily get in touch with it. Observe the person who is gentle and caring in normal consciousness, but when this same person is intoxicated, what an obnoxious creature he or she becomes. The lower self is expressing, one is no more oneself than if one were a different person entirely. This is the best example I know to observe the low self in action. If you mix a glass of water with ink and oil, you will have a good example of the three levels of consciousness composing you. The ink, representing the lower self, permeates the water, which is the normal self. The oil, which is the high self, mixes only to a slight degree. Most of it floats near the top of the glass. Now let us say that by placing the water over heat, the ink is caused to sink to the bottom and the oil to penetrate down deeper into the water, so that by the time the water boils, the ink has been driven completely down and out, and the oil and boiling water mix considerably better than before. What has this example to do with trance? Let us refer now to the yogic or high spiritual trance, Samadhi, which the Buddhists call nirvana. Daily meditations cause spiritual heat in the physical body, a strange heat, which, when reaching a climax, reacts in the substance of the root chakra at the base of the spine. If you meditate daily, hold the mind steadily, concentrated, and consciously attempt to enter the trance state, in time, you are almost certain to do so. With daily practice, the spiritual heat burns increasingly until one day, the mysterious serpent power called Kundalini, which slumbers at the base of the spine, rises from her sleep and glides up Sushumna in the spinal column, there to unite with the brain dew in the crown chakra. The normal self has become the boiling water, and the oil and water have mixed. The middle self has cast off the lower self and united with the high self. The spiritual seeker has entered the highest trance state possible to attain in the physical body, Samadhi, nirvana. The practice of trance has frequently been misunderstood. It is condemned by many who have little awareness of what is truly is or the spiritual benefits which can be achieved through it. The strongest objection is that when in trance, one is experiencing a passive state of consciousness, which invites spirit possession. Such an ill-considered condemnation immediately displays a lack of practical experience in the state of trance. Passivity in itself, whether in a conscious state, meditation, or a trance state, does not invite danger or harm, and is in many instances, greatly to be desired. However, trance is considerably more than simply entering a passive state of consciousness. There are various types of trance, only two of which could justifiably be called passive. One is the state in which a hypnotist places his or her subject. The second is that into which psychics fall spontaneously. All other types are active, with the person retaining full consciousness and control on the inner planes. Hypnotic trance is induced by powerful suggestions, enhanced by psychic manipulations of the etheric double. Successful hypnotists must possess a natural or acquired power of etherically influencing the etheric double of their subjects. Not everyone possesses this power. Therefore, not everyone can become a hypnotist. An incompetent or malicious hypnotist can damage his or her subjects as much as an unskilled surgeon can harm a patient. The hypnotic deep trance is the state required for plastic surgery of the mind, implanting or removing anything the hypnotist desires. This completely unconscious state is rare. Most hypnotists prefer to place their subjects in a state of abstraction, a state where the mind can be guided but not drastically changed. Therapeutic hypnosis employs mind guidance for the benefit of the patient. The mystic, self-induced trance of the masters, the temple sleep of the initiate, is quite a different type of trance. The initiate who, by employing training and technique, deliberately enters trance is no more passive in that mental state than is the diver who deliberately plunges underwater. It is as difficult for the mystic to merge the mind with the superconscious as it is for the swimmer to keep the body submerged in the depths of water. The mystic trance merges into sleep as easily as the body of a swimmer ascends to the top of the water. Actually, it is this normal tendency of the mind to drift into sleep instead of entering trance that is the principal difficulty. The transition of waking consciousness into either a deep sleep state or a state of psychic awareness is always through a blank center. When consciousness is passing inward, it must pass through this momentary dead center, after which it either passes into sleep or psychic awareness. If entering a state of hypnosis, the mind emerges from this dead center to accept the suggestions of the hypnotist. If passing into a psychic consciousness, the mind opens to visions. If passing into sleep, the mind opens into dreams. What are the mental requirements to achieve the trance state? The trained mystic, employing the necessary technique, will recognize this dead center and will by means of an association of ideas or by mental powers of concentration. Send the mind spearheading across the abyss so that she or he enters the psychic consciousness rather than the sleep state. That which begins as pictorial imagination merges either into a trance of visions or astral projection. But in either of these states, the mystic still can be aroused without difficulty. It requires considerable training to restrain the objective consciousness and hold the mind clearly focused upon the inner vision. The easiest way to suppress objective consciousness is to hold the mind centered upon one object or one thought. Constant practice of this one-pointedness of mind has its rewards. One day, while centering your mind upon the magic mirror of your inner vision, you will sense a light among the shadows. You will instinctively be aware that this light differs from the visions you have been beholding. To describe this sense of awareness is almost impossible. The light may eventually take the form of one of the great beings with whom you will be familiar. You will recognize that life exists within the form, distinguishing it from simply a vivid picture image. The encounter may be through trance vision, or it may be one of trance astral projection. If you hold your attention unwaveringly upon the presence, you find your trance passing from being visionary to actually standing on the astral facing your master teacher. The how of entering trance. First, relaxation. Then, withdrawal of consciousness from mundane things. A turning within, a gradual slowing of the outer processes until they come to a complete stop. Then, even as a flywheel slows down when the engine is about to be reversed, the mind becomes active again, focused upon inward spiritual thought. To quiet the mind and stop the constant flow of conscious thought, you may find it helpful to sit in darkness or at least a dim light. As you continue your meditations, you become increasingly sensitive to light, not only through your eyes, but also through your hands and face, and indeed the entire surface of the skin. This sensitivity may become extremely acute on the back of the head and the nape of the neck, and often it extends on down the spine. How can I tell if I am merely imagining? As the objective consciousness recedes, inner awareness increases and images rise in imagination. These images are clearly recognized as the product of the image-making faculty because they can be changed at will. The image which comes with the great light can be recognized as being a separate entity completely because it cannot be changed at will. Up to this point, all types of trance are identical. Whether one attains the state of vivid image making, then the experience may progress into one of several different avenues, usually either the trance of visions or the trance of astral projection. Robert's teachings end here. Earlyne resumes teaching. Religious trance. Among fundamentalist religious sects and others who practice glossolalia, or speaking in tongues, there are many hundreds who deliberately seek to enter a deep trance through religious fervor. While in this trance state, many do not recall any occurrences, while some report experiencing religious ecstasy and spiritual illumination. Many speak in unknown tongues. Most are in a deep trance or semi-trance state. Some of these groups, located in sections of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina, perform the ceremony called the ordeal by fire. During the trance state, others handle deadly snakes to prove their complete faith in the word of Jesus, as recorded in Mark chapter 16, verse 18. These signs shall follow them that believe. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. Part of the ritual occasionally includes drinking a strychnine solution. While in these trance states, they are not burned by the fire, nor bitten by the snakes, nor are they poisoned by the strychnine. Most of the people attending these meetings and partaking in these religious frenzies are farmers and coal miners, descendants of early English and Scottish Irish colonists with straight-laced Calvinist backgrounds. Some consider it sinful to attend movies, drink alcohol, coffee, tea, use tobacco, drugs, or even drink soda pop. Their religious activities include fervent singing accompanied by guitars, cymbals, and tambourines. There is considerable shouting, loud prayers, and enthusiastic testimonies. Many fall to the floor when entering deep trances. Some begin speaking in tongues. At some time during the ceremonies, rattlesnakes and copperheads are taken from screened flat wooden boxes. These are deadly serpents that have been caught in the surrounding mountains and fields for the deliberate purpose of testing the disciples. While it is true that occasionally one is bitten by a snake, hundreds upon hundreds handle these deadly serpents, and no harm comes to them. Then follows the ceremony of drinking the deadly poison. There has seldom been a case of death reported. The climax of the meeting is the ordeal by fire. Usually, a rag wick is placed in a milk bottle filled with kerosene. It is ignited, and the people slowly move their outstretched hands over the flames or put their toes and feet directly into the flames. Some pick up flaming coals and hold them in their hands while walking among the congregation. Does faith really empower the mind? Members of such groups believe that sinners suffer burns or die of drinking the poison or are subject to serpents' poisonous fangs. These are strange and dogmatic beliefs, though these displays certainly are not for everyone. They are an example of a type of religious trance. Samadhi, nirvana. There is a state of consciousness the upreaching soul strives to attain. It is a sublime trance state called Samadhi by the Hindu. The Buddhist calls it nirvana. It is that ultimate state in which the disciple attains contact with his or her divine source. Such a state has no physiological counterpart. There is only one function on the physiological level which could in any way be compared to such a superconscious level, and that is the state of sleep. While it is true that the conscious mind does not retain the memory of it, nevertheless, the soul, during the hours of natural sleep, seeks contact with its divine origin, with its source of life, a reunion with the Supreme Soul. On the physical level, you are very keenly aware of your need for sleep. You are seldom aware that the soul within requires the rejuvenating, recharging contact with its divine source. All the kingdoms of nature seek repose at least once during the 24 hours of a day. Although we cannot readily observe the mineral and plant kingdoms, we are very aware of how the animal sleeps a great deal of the time. When an animal becomes ill, instinct inwardly guides it to fast and steal away to some quiet retreat to sleep. We too, when ill, instinctively seek rest and repose and hopefully sleep. Sleep is nature's great rejuvenator. However, even the special scientists who devote their time probing the mystery of sleep usually are seeking to understand sleep from a physiological standpoint. Seldom do they consider the need of the soul to upreach toward its divine source during the trance of sleep. The amount of sleep time needed varies with each individual. Actually, it is not the need of sleep in itself which one requires, but its results. Indeed, if one could consistently contact the main reservoir of life force through inner means, one would eagerly turn off so many hours of sleep itself and enter the state of consciousness where, touching one's divine source, one could indraw great quantities of life energizing power. What is the secret of attaining illumination during sleep? One of our great needs is to learn how consciously and voluntarily to enter a state of trance which will bring us some rejuvenation we find through sleep. When the mind enters the state of sleep, the body and its conditions are forgotten. Its discomforts, pains, anxieties, its afflictions are all laid aside during some blissful hours. The consciousness escapes from the stress of life, its innumerable complexities, and drifts in quiet repose. To enter such a state voluntarily and still remain consciously aware is to enter the divine state of Samadhi nirvana. At least once during sleep, the consciousness makes a contact with its divine source. It enters the state of Samadhi nirvana. Since Samadhi nirvana is a state of illumination, immediately we are faced with a paradox. If, during sleep, we all briefly touch this state, And if Samadhi nirvana is a state of illumination, why then do we not all waken mentally illumined and consciously aware of our divine contact? And the answer is just that, awareness. Our awareness is directed toward the outer world and its activities. Seldom do we enter sleep thinking of the inner world and the contact we will make with it. If we did, perhaps we would awaken aware of our brief contact with God. When you enter the state of meditation, you are consciously aware of seeking the state of Samadhi nirvana. Yet when you enter a state of sleep, your conscious awareness is usually turned toward the outer world, its problems and activities. Seldom does even the initiate enter sleep with the same awareness into which he or she enters meditation. The simple secret of attaining illumination during sleep and entering the state of Samadhi nirvana is to become aware of the potential sleep offers and to look upon it as an opportunity to enter divine bliss. Having drifted into sleep with such an upreaching awareness, the soul frequently will be able to bring back into conscious remembrance of the higher experiences embraced during the quiet hours of sleep. Such an achievement is not mastered quickly or without effort. Having become aware, you can strive nightly for this attainment. Every Astarian should seek a time for meditation during the hours of waking consciousness, but whether or not this is possible, it surely would be important for you to find time just before falling to sleep to banish all thoughts of the outer world and center the attention upon the process you are entering. Quietly but forcefully, direct your attention toward the state of Samadhi nirvana. Instruct your mind to drop all anxieties and concerns of the outer world. Direct your higher self to bring to the conscious mind a remembrance of its contact with divinity. Awaken with the same resolve. Do not immediately seize upon plans for the day. Rather, direct your first waking thoughts toward the activities from which you have just returned. Spend a few moments dwelling on an effort to recall your contact with the supreme fountainhead of all life. Thus, by entering such a state upon going to sleep and wakening, you gradually train your mind toward remembering. Hopefully, you can extend the brief period of meditation before you enter sleep and the moments of awakening, gradually lengthening such moments until you have transmuted a period of sleep into a time of meditation. Such a dedicated practice can work indescribable change on both the inner and the outer being. The mind gradually becomes more serene. You become less aware of fatigue and more aware of a recharged life force flowing within. The nerves are subdued. The stress of life flows over you, not through you. You learn to conserve energy and walk enveloped in light. So we suggest that you train your mind, Astarian, to meditate while you sleep. Train your outer consciousness to enter a state of meditation just prior to sleep and just returning from sleep. Thus, Samadhi nirvana becomes part of your outer awareness, and you understand fully the sublime teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. That which is night to all men, therein the self-subjugated remains awake, and in that, where all beings wake, there is night for the knower of the Supreme. The ultimate attainment of consciousness. When describing Samadhi nirvana, it is frequently depicted as merging the soul into the great soul or the infinite. Unfortunately, the word annihilation has been employed in describing the results of this merging activity, and most students of mysticism find it difficult to reconcile this so-called annihilation with the teaching that the individuality is forever and eternally maintained. Some clarification is needed. In the beginning, however, it must be stated that at our present level of consciousness, our physical brains cannot fully comprehend so sublime an experience as the ultimate nirvana, parinirvana. Even the greatest living masters know very little of that transcendental glory, and that which any do know cannot adequately be put into words. We can begin our clarification, however, by stating that it is misleading to speak of individual souls as merging into the divine soul, for that great divinity permeates everything and envelops everything. Every individual is already merged with and is part of that great supreme soul. I and the Father are one. John chapter 10, verse 30. How then can the individualized spark of the divine flame merge into that of which you are already a part? You can begin to grasp an understanding if you can visualize the individualized spark gradually developing into flame. You can understand even better if you grasp the idea that the individual spark becomes increasingly conscious of your unity with the Supreme Soul, allowing that divine essence to manifest more and more within yourself. As the spark develops into even brighter flame, you most assuredly experience no loss of individuality, no loss of the power to think, to plan, to act, to create. What actually happens is that you lose entirely the sense of separateness. But such consciousness is by no means annihilation. Sir Edward Arnold's beautiful verse from his poem, The Light of Asia, has often been used in describing the exalted conditions of nirvana or samadhi. No need has such to live as ye name life. That which began in him when he began is finished. He hath wrought the purpose through of what did make him man. Never shall yearnings torture him, nor sins stain him, nor ache of earthly joys and woes invade his safe eternal peace, nor deaths and lives recur. He goes unto nirvana. He is one with life, yet lives not. He is blessed, ceasing to be. Om Mani Padme Hum, the dewdrop slips into the shining sea. Here again, the words ceasing to be would indicate annihilation, but those who have experienced even a small portion of that most wondrous state of nirvana know that, paradoxical as it seems, the sensation in the consciousness is exactly the opposite. The individual does not cease to be, nor does one lose identity in the shining sea. It would be better to say that the drop has somehow embraced the shining sea. How is awareness my key? The individualized consciousness breaks its narrow boundary, not to merge with or slip into the shining sea, but to become aware of its greater oneness with the ever presence of the great sea into which it already is immersed. The personality at once realizes that it is and always has been part of the shining sea. Thus, one need not merge with it. One only need open one's own consciousness to receive the inpouring of it. Experiencing that state of expanded awareness, it seems to the individual that your consciousness, rather than being annihilated, has expanded to embrace all that is. Not that you have merged into anything at all. The small measure of consciousness, which you have considered your consciousness, you recognize to be only a fragment of the great consciousness, which has ever been within you and about you. You understand that you never actually were a separate individual, but that to think so has clearly been a delusion, since you always have been immersed in and part of the shining sea. The awareness, expanded to universal levels, observes a whole universe radiating with an immense ocean of living light, the glory of which fills the being with a vividness of life and bliss altogether beyond human description. At first, there is nothing but the brilliance of the light and the glory of the divine bliss. Then, gradually, the consciousness becomes aware of brighter spots in the clear light. Nuclei would perhaps be a better description, lights within the divine effulgence. Rather than annihilation, you are aware that you have become a living flame rather than a spark. The other lights within the divine effulgence you recognize to be the great ones, the planetary spirits, the karmic deities, the divine angels, the Buddhas, Christs, and Masters, through whom the divine life flows outward to reach those not yet so highly evolved. Can the sublime light experience be for everyone? Clearly, the divine ocean of light shines for everyone, and every individual soul is immersed in it. It remains only for each spark to expand its awareness of its immersion in the great sea. Far from the ultimate reality, humankind on the physical plane shuts itself away from the divine glory as one might walk into a cave to escape the sunlight. The light of the sun floods the entire earth, but the soul can escape it by closing itself away from it. Each soul has a center of consciousness, and according to its measures, it is merged into the shining sea. Yoga, Samadhi, and nirvana. The states of consciousness describing nirvana and samadhi are interchangeable in that they both describe a yogic supertrance induced by intense concentration. This concentration, called samatha in Pali, is a long and laborious process built up without haste but without rest. It requires prolonged self-discipline and tireless effort maintained with unflinching determination. What kind of daily life leads to enlightenment? Sensitizing one's vehicles is also part of the pathway to samadhi nirvana, the highest of all states of consciousness realized while in the physical body. Such refinement is attained through the practices of certain preliminaries called yama and niyama. They read like the Christian 10 Commandments: crush out pride, speak evil of no one, destroy arrogance, be kind and gentle to all, be merciful to every living creature, forgive those who harm you, help those who need help, resist not your enemies, destroy passions, lust not, desire nothing, overcome hatred, destroy selfishness, avoid hypocrisy, be tolerant with the intolerant, charitable and compassionate with the hard-hearted, gentle with the violent, detached from everything amidst those who are attached to all in this world of illusion. Harm no mortal creature. Do that which you would like to see done by all others. Lead the life so as to enter the straight and narrow gate. It is only by so doing that one stands upon the threshold of nirvana. Nirvana in the Upanishads. It is of interest to note that the rishis of the major Upanishads, though they were familiar with the divine trance, nowhere used the word nirvana. The Buddha, however, used it to connote moksha or emancipation. The Buddha says this doctrine is penetrated by one taste, the taste of nirvana. The Buddha describes nirvana in this fashion: even thus, O king, as a debt and as an illness, as imprisonment, as thraldom, as a desert journey, does the monk regard these 5 impediments while as yet they are not banished from within him, but like a canceled debt, like recovery from illness, like release from prison, like being a freed man, like safe soil, even so does the monk regard the banishing of these 5 impediments from within him. Just as, O Brahmin, The blue, red, or white lotus flower originated in the water, grows up in the water, stands there, towering above the water, untouched by the water. Just so, O Brahmin, I am born within the world, but I have vanquished the world, and, unspotted by the world, I remain. This is the state of Jivan Mukti spoken of in the ancient text. The seeker has risen above conventional virtue and vice. You are indifferent and impersonal in the real sense of the word. You are not yet free from all sensations. They are still felt, but you stand toward them as a freer person. You may be described as an enlightened spectator of the world scene. This is your last physical body. Again, in order to understand what nirvana truly is, we must discard the erroneous idea of annihilation and turn to the original teachings as handed down in the Pali Tripitaka. Instead of the annihilation of the self, the Buddha also taught nirvana is that condition where there is neither birth nor disease, nor decay, nor becoming old, nor dying, nor woe, sorrow, suffering, grief, and despair. It is the deathless, the sorrowless, the stainless. Continuing, he taught, I have in this life entered nirvana. While the life of Gautama has been extinguished, self has disappeared and truth has taken its abode in me. Again, quoting Sir Edward Arnold in The Light of Asia, until, greater than kings, than gods, more glad, the aching craze to live ends, and life glides, lifeless, to nameless quiet, nameless joy, blessed nirvana, sinless, stirless rest, that change which never changes. What are the positive aspects of nirvana? When we speak of attaining nirvana through banishment of desire, hatred, and delusion, we refer only to the negative aspects of, for seeking nirvana also has its positive aspects, in that it describes striving for an unshakable inward peace, a state of incomparable joy and ecstasy. In the Tripitaka, the achievement of nirvana is described as blissful tranquility, stainless bliss of eternal peace, absolute peace, eternal peace, eternal rest, eternal stillness, and great peace. Quoting the Buddha again, he is not anywhere whatsoever to anyone whatsoever in anything whatsoever. Neither is anything whatsoever his anywhere whatsoever in anything whatsoever. By this, he is describing the truly delivered one as being nowhere and everywhere. He or she is indefinable, inscrutable, immeasurable, like a great ocean. To reach nirvana is thus to pass beyond humanity and to gain a level of peace and bliss far above earthly comprehension. Quoting the Buddha again, just as of the fire which flames up under the strokes of the smith's hammer, it cannot be said as to whither it has gone after it is extinguished, so just as little can be discovered the abode of the truly delivered ones who have crossed over the stream of the bounds of the senses and have reached the unshakable bliss. Because he said this, the Buddha came to be regarded as a nihilist, one who teaches the absolute extinction of the soul as an entity. Misunderstanding among his followers began even during his lifetime, so that we find in the Majjhima Nikaya the Buddha protesting this misunderstanding. O Bhikkhus, because I say that the Tathagata, the one who has attained nirvana, is traceable here and now, therefore some Shramanas and Brahmanas have wrongly, erroneously, falsely, untruly impeached me, saying that Shramana Gautama, that is, myself, is a nihilist. They say I have proclaimed the extinction, the nullification of what is Sat, but I do not say so. I am not a nihilist. The Buddha taught that the personality which makes up the 5 skandhas is only our apparent ego. The 5 skandhas are the elements which the individual constitution receives with incarnation, but which are not part of the individuality. The personality is something alien to our true essence, and from this alien thing we must liberate ourselves. Through nirvana, we seek to withdraw more and more from this thick covering that is spread over our real essence, until that essence lies before us, untainted by self. It is interesting to note that the same misunderstanding against which the Buddha had to protest assailed his predecessor, Yajnavalkya. He taught, where there is duality, as it were, there one sees another, hears another, smells another, tastes another, touches another, feels another, knows another. But where all has become one, undivided, Atman, then how can one see, hear, smell, taste, touch, feel, or know another? Is this annihilation? By no means. Although Yajnavalkya points out that through nirvana one sees not, hears not, smells not, tastes not, touches not, grasps not, speaks not, knows not, neither feels nor wills, even so the powers, or rather the faculties of sight, hearing, smelling, feeling, willing, knowing, are all intact. Again, quoting Sir Edward Arnold in his Light of Asia, if any teach nirvana is to cease, say unto such they lie. If any teach nirvana is to live, say unto such they err, not knowing this, nor what light shines beyond their broken lamps, nor lifeless, timeless bliss, the summit of existence. Indeed, the nirvanic consciousness is the antithesis of annihilation. Rather than annihilation, it is existence raised to an intensity inconceivable to those who are only familiar with the life of the senses and the mind. The everyday consciousness of the soul may be related to the consciousness of nirvana, and we might compare one small electric light to the brilliance and splendor of the sun at noon. To say that nirvana is annihilation is comparable to saying that the sun cannot shine without the electric light being turned on. The Buddha describes the disciple who has attained nirvana as one who reposes in the boundlessness and infinitude of one's highest essence, which is, of course, transcendental. Thus, rather than annihilation, nirvana teaches immortality, not extinction, but deathless and tranquil eternity, indestructibility. Without continued existence is the high destiny to which those seeking nirvana are called. In such a redeemed one, all change, all time has vanished. That is to say, it has no more meaning for the seeker, has temporarily risen above time and change and linked the self to the eternal self. Great travels await you. As marvelous as the human body is, certainly one of God's greatest creations, it is still very restrictive home when entering the world of esoteric experiences. Compared to the abilities of the mind and soul, the physical body seems indeed primitive. Fortunately, there are ways to escape this limited realm of existence in order to experience worlds beyond the physical plane that are available to us all. They are given many names: astral projection, out-of-body experiences, and, as we like to call it, soul travel. Lessons 10 and 11, The Science of Soul Travels, Part 1 and 2, not only introduce you to this marvelous opportunity, they show you how to participate in soul travel, how to prepare yourself for such journeys, practical things to do and things to avoid, how to learn and benefit from soul travel. You'll learn the difference between trance and astral projection. See how distance is a physical barrier only. Discover what it's like over there prior to your death. Understand what comprises the soul body. Review your book of judgment and Akashic records, and explore many other areas that affect and are affected by the relationship between the physical and astral. These lessons will bring you halfway through the 5th degree. You've shown a great deal of dedication in your life by traveling this far with us down your spiritual path. Reward your soul by continuing our journey together today. I don't know about you, but I'm up for that. You up for that? Yes? All right. Well, before we go, if you guys are open, we'll end with a little blessing. The February blessing from the Astara light. Just go ahead and place the tip of the tongue on the palate, palms facing up, nice. Restful pose, slow inhalation. From life's higher regions to the individualized focal point of life, which you are, may there flow toward you a never-ending symphony of power, which will constantly reinforce your life. May it strengthen you in meeting and overcoming every obstacle. May it inspire you to ever greater achievements. May it enrich your life with a bountiful treasure of love and accomplishment. And the affirming meditation. In my consciousness, I open myself to the inflow of all that proceeds from the one great source. I receive it into my being with humility that I am the recipient of the higher grace. In my spiritual consciousness, I am cleansed. In my mind, I am oriented toward productive self-expression. In my emotions, I attain serenity. In my body, I acquire vitality. May these blessings manifest continually down the spinal causeway. Tatatsu. Namaste, namaste, precious, precious souls. Thank you so much for again joining us on this book of life and on this path that we're on. I hope it's as blissful as it is. I get so blissed out reading these things I can barely keep my eyes open. So I hope that it's transferred to you as well. Have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow for the blessing of the prayer petitions, and see you Wednesday for the energy blessing and the mystic vibration. Have a beautiful moment. Namaste. And happy past Valentine's Day to all those. Love. Namaste. Take care.